What do you want out of me, guys? What do you want out of me? Irrespective of where you stand on the whole Jets tank thing, because there are people that say try to win as many games as possible. When is drafting higher for help the Jets? And there are people saying tank, weak quarterback clash, got to get your guy. I see both sides of it. But to lose like this against a team that is not that good, Seattle might make the play. That is not a particularly well-rounded team. And the Jets had them dead in the first half at home, dead. And they let them off the mat through in ways that only the Jets can. A lot like the Browns for most of their existence were just bad and would get crushed every week. The Lions were bad and would get crushed every week. The Jets are one of these chaotic teams, and they're good chaotic teams. Seattle when they had Russell Wilson, Minnesota a lot of the time. I get it. Jets chaos always ends up like this, and it just makes you shout to the heavens because you wonder when can they turn it around? Because if they're losing like this, it just makes you just grab your head and shout to the sky and go, is it ever going to get better? Because this is now 9 straight losing seasons. Now imagine 9 straight playoff seasons without the playoffs hasn't happened in the NFL outside of the Jets currently. 9 straight losing seasons. 9 straight seasons where the most wins they're going to have is 7. 7-9 being their best record, and that was a 1-8 team where they started out and then won a bunch of meaningless crap near the end of that Adam Gase debut season. That's the best Jets team that in a decade, and it's still bad. So thank you for tuning into the Jet Press Podcast. I'm Mike Luciano. You may notice there is no Justin Freed, and that is because Justin Freed was at this game. Justin Freed paid American dollars to attend this game live. So while he goes and navigates the labyrinth maze that is MetLife, once you try to get out of that, because that is a parking nightmare, I'll hold it down for you guys here on the Jet Press Podcast. We are on YouTube at the Jet Press. That's where you can like the stream. Like, likes really do help in terms of boosting us. Subscriptions really help. Doesn't cost a nickel. Just hit that subscribe button and you're good. And if you want to support the show with your wallet, you can do that through 2 ways. You can use Super Chats, where you can donate money in the chat, and I will read your comment on stream. Or you could subscribe to our 99-cent membership, where you get priority reply in the comments. And those are 2 ways you could support the show. Those are 2 ways to help us make more Jets content, and 2 ways to say, hey, man, I'm as sick of the Jets as you are, because it's getting to a point now. Like the only thing that the Jets can stand on, again, is hope. That's all you got. That's all enough to sit through. Is 21-7. The vibes, my God, were immaculate. Aaron Rodgers looked really, really good. 2 touchdown passes. Isaiah Davis gets his first touchdown. Kene Nwangwu has his 4th career kick return touchdown in 4 seasons. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in 2025. He may have just made himself a ton of money today. As AJ says, good grief. Good grief is the only way to really explain this one. I mean, the vibes were immaculate. And then the Seahawks, because they're not a very good team, I think they're decently coached. Mike McDonald's in his first year. I think they're well coached as William Sprague becomes a member. Thank you, William Sprague. They get the ball back, and they fumble the kickoff on the next return. It's set up to be a trouncing. This could have been, like, even last year, like, remember when Zach Wilson just had the best game of his career against the Texans around this time? This could have been one of those games where you're going to go, hey, tanking is what it is. It's nice to see them kick butt at home, especially late in the year. It's nice to see guys feel good. I can't even call that the bottom falling out. That is beyond the bottom falling out. That is an atrocity. And I don't want to beat up on Jeff Ulbrich a lot because this analogy gets thrown out a lot, but it's true. It's like asking the fat kid in gym to climb the rope. Like, no matter how much I ask him to climb the rope, if he's physically incapable of doing it, me yelling at him isn't going to fix it. Jeff Ulbrich is not physically capable of being even a bad head coach. He is awful to a level that it makes you question other teams who wanted to hire him in the offseason as their head coach. And you just go, man, where did it go? I mean, he just looks like he's waiting for a train. Just nothing on the side. Just gives you nothing. Which means that the only really way to get any emotion out of anybody here is from the players, and now they're too emotional and making all sorts of crazy penalties. I mean, they're getting stops and then horse collar tackles on Solomon Thomas. That's how we're going to lose a horse collar tackle on Solomon Thomas. That's how drives are going to keep going. Terrible pass interference penalties. The offense just, for some reason, went. I don't know what happened in that second half because there was creativity in the first half from Todd Downing, too. Rodgers, and the thing, though, too, that pisses me off is Rodgers in the first half looked like his old self. I have no faults with Aaron Rodgers in the first half. Now in the second half, not only are his legs going. It's one thing for the legs to go for an older quarterback. I mean, everything's going. The ball placement's going. The arm strength's going. The decision-making's going. That's stuff that you never thought would leave Aaron Rodgers. That's leaving now. There are only a couple silver linings. Here are the silver linings. The players that are going to be with the Jets next year, for the most part, because half this team is not. More than half this team is not. For the most part, they played well. Olu Fashanu, I thought it was his best game as a professional. Breece Hall had the fumble, but I liked a lot of what Breece did. Braylon Allen had a couple plays. Isaiah Davis, his first touchdown, a big catch on fourth down. Quincy Williams, terrific. Will McDonald is now up to 10 sacks in his second season, which I believe is now top 3 or 4 in the league. So you're getting production out of Will McDonald. So you look at that and you go, you know what? The Jets, they're, I guess, foundational pieces, for lack of a better word, are performing okay. And they're not going to make the playoffs. So some guys are going, oh, you know what? This is an okay result because the tank is still on. The guys we need to look okay looked okay, fine. I could get that, but you can't lose like that. You can't lose like this. Some things are beyond the pale in football. Some things you just can't allow to have happen in football. And this game is one of those things. I'm just so disgusted. I'm so disgusted. Because we got to sit through 5 more games of this. They're probably going to win 1 or 2 more, unless this happens again. They're probably going to win 1 or 2 more. I don't see them being worse than the Giants. I don't see them being worse than the Raiders. I don't even see them being worse than the Panthers if they want to reboot a quarterback. So because of that, all you Jets fans that are dreaming of Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, because those are the 2 real game-changing quarterbacks in a very weak class, that dream's pretty much dead. So you can't even when the Jets got Zach Wilson, even if they didn't get Trevor Lawrence, the reward was still the number 2 pick. The Darnold year, they got the 6th pick and then moved up to 3 in an incredibly deep class. They're going to miss out on that this year. They're not going to get one of those guys. So what do you have to look for at the end of this? Well, a new head coach, because the Jets hire so many good head coaches. A new GM, because they hire so many good GMs. Possibly new ownership, because Woody might be going overseas to God knows where in this new presidential administration. And then maybe Jalen Milroe or Carson Beck. Jalen Milroe has thrown, I believe, as many interceptions as touchdowns against SEC teams. I think he has 15 against 10 on the year, and then he had like 5 against the Cupcakes earlier in the year. Carson Beck, same sort of thing. Half his touchdowns are against like Tennessee Tech and all these other cream puffs. That's who you're going to have to look forward to. One of those 2 guys. If the Jets even take a quarterback, because they may just say, we're going to run it back. That's running it back. Despite the insider reports, I still think there's a large contingent of people over at One Jets Drive that believe that this year was just Murphy's Law and they're going to run it all back and be fine. They're not going to be fine if they do that. But I feel like there's a chance that they just end up doing it, and that's the concerning part. This year, the reason it's so bad, and the reason the Seahawks exemplifies it, is however bad those last couple teams were, the end of Bowles, the end of Gase, there was always an ability to wipe the slate totally clean. Brand new quarterback picked high, tons of new roster players. They can't do a full wiped clean. They can get new coaches. They can get a new GM, but a lot of these guys from this roster are still going to be here. They may not have the ability to get a new quarterback. They may just have to go with Tyrod and a second-round quarterback and take their lumps again next year, make it 15 years in a row of no playoffs. And I'm not necessarily, I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, but how can you not be doom and gloom? The Jets have won 3 games this year. They won 1 game on Sunday. Think about that. 1 game on Sunday. They are 2-0 on Thursday. They're great on Thursday. Crushed the Patriots. Crushed the Texans. I don't know how they crushed the Texans. I don't get it. Sometimes things just go your way. Other than that, they've beat the Titans in a game that the Titans were giving them because Will Levis made some horrible turnovers. And they have lost the rest. It's inconceivable. It's unbelievable. I don't care how big a Jets hater you are, you know, nobody envisioned this. I want to get to some of your comments here as Justin has jumped back in with Mike for President. I'm holding it down with you for you, buddy, because this is trying. This is a trying time. Lane Brandon, draft position is saved. Yeah, you could say that, but I feel like there's a lot of Jets fans out there that were rooting for the Jets to win this game, and now they're going reflexively to the draft position is better and to just cope afterwards. It's one thing to have that philosophy the entire way, but I feel like a lot of Jets fans were saying, oh, it's nice to finally beat the Seahawks until they don't beat the Seahawks. Manish Mehta's burner, formerly known as Brian Sternbeck. Drafting high is pretty much the only reason Joe Douglas got a 5th year. And you know what? The worst part of it, too, is Fashanu looks okay. Will McDonald looks okay. Sauce Garrett. Sauce got hurt, obviously, but DK Metcalf didn't have a catch in the first half. And that was pretty much all Sauce. I think he had like 1 target. They're all looking good. This team has good players. Again, I know we've said it in different variations 100 times. This team has good players. Very good players. Elite players. And they just don't fit together. Coaching, yeah. GM, yeah. Quarterback, yeah. But something's not right. And that's why you need just a complete tidal wave to get it all out of here. And I just don't think that's coming. 26 unanswered points. I don't think it was 26, but I think it was 20. Or there was like 19 or 20. But yeah, it was. Boy, was that a bad showing. Against the team that you had him beat. Like Geno Smith looked bad in the first half. That offensive line was not good for Seattle. And the Jets took advantage. And yet we're here talking about another Jets close loss at home. It boggles the mind how consistent they are. They shouldn't be this consistent in terms of losing like this. Gregory Freeman, AVT got his ass kicked by Leonard Big Cat Williams. Not a great AVT game. Fashanu was pretty good. John Simpson was pretty good. That right side of the line was a little questionable. I know Morgan Moses got hurt too. Leonard Williams, again, another Jets revenge game in MetLife. Leonard Williams, still very good at age, 32 now? Leonard Williams for Seattle. He is 30. Wow, he's younger than I thought he was. If you let me editorialize a little bit too, I always kind of liked Leonard Williams. I know he got kind of billed as the top player in the draft, and oh my God, how could you possibly let him fall? But, I always thought he was a productive player. Maybe not like the 10-sack guy that everybody wanted him to be, but he made some plays. Also, some quick updates for some quotes here. Jeff Ulbrich, when asked if he would consider making a quarterback change from Aaron Rodgers, he said, not as of today. So prepare for more washed Aaron Rodgers down the stretch. I don't know if that's better for the tank than Tyrod is. And if Tyrod's better, I don't know why you would make that move now because you're 3-9. DJ Reed also tweeted that the officials effing suck and should be ashamed of yourself. Yeah, but also, this is... Oh, boy. Everybody's just mad. Everybody's frustrated. And I don't blame any of them. JPS Cardi. Maybe Lord Bezos will buy the team and bring us to glory. Jeff Bezos, not to ruin things here, but I don't think he's going to be a better owner than Woody Johnson. What does Jeff Bezos know about running a football team? AJ, our member, for some reason I felt optimistic about this game, back to numbness. How could you not be optimistic about the start of this game? Seattle was wounded. It's a first-year head coach. It's a terrible offensive line. Everything was set up for the Jets to not only compete, but possibly, like, if you looked at the schedule outside of the Jaguars, who that's going to be a tough game because they got to go play Jacksonville later this year. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to be in that game after they're now also a 2-win team, and he had that really scary concussion. That might screw up the tank a little bit because they're probably going to win that game. They're probably going to win that game, so that will put them even further away from either Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, who look like the only two kind of no-doubt first-round prospects. So everybody's losing here. There's nobody happy. And you just wonder, like, what's going to turn it around other than just an act of God? Brandon R., we knew they were losing. It was just a matter of how after the pick six. Like, when that happened, I'm like, I didn't think they would necessarily lose, but I knew it wasn't going to be comfortable the rest of the way. When that happened, I'm just like, okay, it's classic Jets. Here we go again. Because also Rodgers had missed Wilson in the end zone before that. He throws that on target. It's 28-6. It's a romp. I don't even think the Jets lose 28-6 against the Seahawks team. And yet we had Leonard Williams, who I believe set the NFL record for the longest pick six by a defensive lineman in NFL history. So making records against the Jets, classic stuff. Brandon R. again, the Jets are artists and need to lose with style and purpose. They need to for the sake of their art. They must suffer for their art. That's why it's called painting. Brandon R. Ed Gumbrecht, we were Douglas. Every guy he dumped has come back to kill us. Leonard Williams' trade at the time made sense. Got a pick back. I don't think he was particularly... He had that 1 year with the Giants, and then after that, he was kind of He's been reborn in Seattle. That was tough. Manish Metasburner, they had to lose because it was the Leonard Williams revenge game, obviously. Leonard was great. He was probably the best defensive player on the field for Seattle. Gregory Freeman, ball placement, talking about Rodgers' ball placement. He had Corley in the end zone and missed him. He had Adams too. You would think that the arm, because that's what we said earlier in the year was, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the mobility that he once had, but the arm is still there. Technical difficulties. And it was still there. He was making great throws down the field, aggressive and everything. That I never thought that would leave Aaron Rodgers. Oh, but it has. And that's the thing where even if you've talked yourself into there's not going to be a better option out there than this former Rodgers, there may not be many better options than stuck in the pocket stationary Rodgers. But if you're looking to like Rodgers, who's now struggling to throw accurately, that's a problem. AJ, why do you think Garrett Wilson was involved in the game so little? I think it's a little bit of they want to get Devontae Adams going. I think it's a little bit of the Seahawks have really good defensive backs, Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon. They have some good pieces in that defense. Garrett just wasn't getting open. And then also on top of that, Aaron Rodgers was just missing him. Sometimes you just missing him. And I'm still, even looking back on after all that's happened, I still believe that Aaron Rodgers was playing pretty decently well in the first 5, 6, 7 games of the year. He's not anymore. He's not. He's playing poorly, in fact. It's a shame to see a career like his. And it's one thing to have Kirk Cousins struggle or a Ryan Tannehill struggle, that level of good quarterback struggle, Flacco near the end. A guy like this, who you could very easily argue is on quarterback Mount Rushmore, on football player Mount Rushmore. You could make I'm not from mine, but you could make an argument to see it go down like this. And I know nobody's going to remember Jerry Rice on the Seahawks or Emmitt Smith on the Cardinals or Hakeem Olajuwon on the Raptors, Michael Jordan on the Wizards. I get that it's like that, but because it's the Jets in New York, it's just so in everybody's consciousness. It's just getting beamed into our eyes every single day. The demise of Aaron Rodgers, man, it's a problem. Brandon R., we aren't winning again, but we aren't getting a super high pick because the rest of the league is terrible too. Like, yeah. Like, if you look at the Jets right now, they have the 5th pick. If the season ended this second, 5th pick. If Carolina loses, they'll move to the 6th. So they're going to be 5th. The 4 teams ahead of them, Jacksonville, who I think is better than the record, but with Lawrence hurt, I don't think Mac Jones is going to win them games. The Raiders, who are in games, but they're a mess. They're third quarterback already. The Giants, maybe even bigger mess than the Jets. And then the Patriots, who actually are competitive now because Drake May, pretty good. Amazing how the Jets can never get quarterback. The Patriots been quarterback error and immediately correcting to get Drake May. That's what drives you even crazier, that May looks this legit with the Patriots. The only team I could see the Jets possibly leapfrogging that order is maybe New England. The 2 you got to watch are the Raiders and the Giants, because I don't think either of them are going to be in that veteran quarterback market where they're going to sign like a Sam Darnold to a 3-year deal. Because one of these quarterback-needy teams is going to sign Darnold. Maybe one gives like Jameis Winston a deal. I don't know. But if they're picking that high and they did not sign Darnold, which I don't think either of them will, I think Ward's going to the first team, the team with the worst record, and then the second worst record is going to get Sanders. And then the Jets maybe trade down. Because even if you like Milroe, I don't think he's 3. It's not ideal for a team looking to build in the future. JPS Cardi, thoughts on Jalen Milroe? He's my quarterback 3 in this draft so far. He's not ready year 1. It's not Anthony Richardson where it was entirely tool-based, but you're picking him for the tools because the arm is good, the downfield accuracy is good, but when he's not in rhythm, it's kind of His accuracy comes and goes. He's really, like, once he starts struggling, he starts pressing a little bit, very in a Zach Wilson-y kind of way. Like, he'll try to make a big throw, and then, oh boy, another pick. But he is a great runner. He has 20 rushing touchdowns this year. 20. That's insane. Super fat, like 4.4 level speed. Great runner. He reminds me a little bit of Justin Fields, but with a little bit of a weaker arm and a little bit more accurate down the field. So, although he didn't necessarily work out for the Bears, if you like Justin Fields in the draft, you'll probably like Jalen Milroe. I just wouldn't pick him in like the top 5. Like, the Jets could maybe trade down to like 9, 10, 11 and still get him. I think that could be so. I could buy into that. Gregory Freeman, no to Carson Beck. I could see him rising back up if he like finishes the season strong. He's going to work out really well. He's got a really strong arm. I could see Carson Beck at some point being an option for the Jets, but certainly not, too high. Brandon R., I can't see any legit GM wanting to come here with Rodgers. That's the other thing, too. Like, yeah, Rodgers is going to scare people away. A legit GM, if the Jets had the opportunity to take Ward or Sanders, they had like a top 3 pick, for coaches and GMs, that job becomes instantly much more attractive. If you have like the 9th pick, and then you got to tie because most GMs are not Joe Douglas where they get 6 years. Most GMs get 2, 3, 4. Are you going to tie your entire, and also it's tougher for GMs to get second chances than coaches. Are you going to tie your GM career to Jalen Milroe, to Carson Beck, on top of just general Jets chaos? I mean, I know they're going to hire somebody. Hassan Okoro, I would take Rodgers back. They have no legit replacements. The man hasn't played football in 1 year coming off an injury, but he's 41. Like, at some point, like, he's only going to get older. He's going to get older. He's going to get worse. Is he magically going to get better? Like, I would have been in on that take if the Jets had maybe like 1 or 2 more wins and Rodgers was playing at the level he was in, like, the Minnesota game, like weeks like 5 through 6 or 7. If he was at that level and the Jets were like, I don't know, 5 and 7, I could buy into that. I actually could buy into that a little bit. It's probably not ideal, but I could buy into that. Like, why? Why would he want to come back to this? This team is bad, man. And he's one of the main reasons. I get there's not a ton of options out there, but they try. It's not that they didn't try. They tried so flipping hard for this to work with Aaron Rodgers, and it didn't. I don't know whose fault that is. You could argue it's nobody's fault if you want to because the injury happened. And who knew? So immediately it could have just been nobody's fault, just bad luck, if you want to subscribe it to that. But it's certainly not working. Garrett Goodlander hoping to lose all the way now. Well, if you look at the Jets' schedule, they have 5 games left. They have Miami, at Jackson, at home against the Rams, at Buffalo. I could see them beating I think they'll beat Jacksonville, especially if Mac Jones is playing. And it'll give them one of the 2 Miami games. So that's 5. And I don't think 5 is going to be good enough for them to get in the top range for the quarterbacks. Brian Sternbeck, Sauce allowed 1 catch for -1 yard unless I'm missing something. Brandon R. with a different opinion. There was a play where Sauce didn't look back for a 26-yard gain. I don't know if who they're going to grade as responsible for that one, but yeah, Sauce was great. Sauce was fantastic. That's one of the best receiving rooms in the league in Seattle. And DK Metcalf is huge. And Sauce Gardner's skinny. Shut him down. Shut him down. And then he got hurt, and DJ Reed and Michael Carter got hurt in the span of like 10 minutes. And then you got Quantez Stiggers out there on him, and then what do you know? Oscar, what pick do you see us getting at the end of the season? Probably 6, 7, 8. Little too high for Milrow, not high enough for Ward or Sanders. Also known as the nightmare situation. Garrett Goodlander. Rodgers was so horrible today, it shows he's washed. Not going to get any arguments from me. AJ, I see no better than 5-12 at this point. That's where I'm getting. That's kind of where I am. And I'm just so disgusted because even if they didn't make the Super Bowl, they could at least have broken the playoff drought. Did anybody think they weren't going to at least be a playoff contender? I mean, my God, they're worse than the Zach Wilson year. And Zach Wilson still is worse than this version of Aaron Rodgers considerably. And they still won more games. Manish Mehta's burner. Hassan Reddick looked like he was trying to run through a brick wall for the first half of this game. Yeah, he was okay. But again, that's the problem with the Jets. Is Reddick, and it's pretty much been in writing admitted, Hassan Reddick knows he's not going to be back. All he's doing, he doesn't care if the Jets win or lose. Now, the players do not tank. Players want the Jets to win. Every player on that team wants the Jets to win the rest of their games and go 8-9. Hassan Reddick is one of the exceptions because he knows he's not going to be back. Everything was poisoned from the beginning with the holdout thing. He's just trying to get as many sacks as possible right before he gets a big contract somewhere else that is not the Jets. So, yeah, he looked okay. Where was that when they needed him? Because they had games that they actually needed Hassan Reddick to play well. He had 1 good game, the Houston game. Take away the Houston game, he's been terrible. And that's a bad trade from Joe Douglas, who has now let 3 third-round... We want to rebuild. He's let 3 third-round picks on fire pretty much. Malachi Corley, unless Corley turns it around, because he does not particularly good right now. Devontae Adams trade, because it looks like Adams is probably going to be gone if Rodgers is gone. The only way I could see Adams staying is if they get Derek Carr from New Orleans and then they keep both of them and run it back. I could probably get into that. And then the Hassan Reddick trade. Javier Trujillo Martinez, hate from Seattle, 6-0 versus the Jets. How dare you compare yourself to the Legion of... get out of here. Knock it off. Knock it off, you clown. JPS Carter, referring to the Bezos comment from earlier. He doesn't know anything, but if he lets the GM run the show, he's got the money to get anything. How do you know he's going to let the GM run the show? Do you think Jeff Bezos got his money by being hands-off? He has money from running everything meticulously. And yeah, he's got the money to do stuff. This isn't baseball. This isn't Steve Cohen or like bringing money like $10 billion from elsewhere outside of baseball. So he's not just worth what the team is worth like Hal Steinbrenner. He's worth what he's worth and can spend whatever in uncapped league. This isn't like that. If it was like that, the Packers would never get anybody. And David Tepper would buy everybody. Buying in with money is not a prerequisite for success, and it does not mean that you're going to be a good owner. It just means you have money. And Woody Johnson has money too. He's just a bad owner. Garrett Goodlander, Sanders will not play for the Jets. Dion already confirmed it. I'm calling his bluff on that. It's basically impossible now. Because They basically, after Eli, the league changed the structure for rookies to basically make it impossible for guys like that to hold out. Like, if the Jets pick Shedeur Sanders, what are they going to do? Is he going to never play? Let's say the Jets don't trade him. They do it with Hassan Reddick. They didn't trade Hassan Reddick. And you know what? Hassan Reddick showed up eventually. Is Shedeur Sanders never going to play in the NFL if they take him? There's no other league. He's stuck there. He's going to play. And you know what? Dion may want to get his son into a good situation. You know what else Dion and his family like? Media attention. Eyeballs on him. We're going to get more eyeballs on him. They are Carolina. We're going to get more eyeballs on him. They are the Raiders. They're the Titans. He's gonna play in New York. Eli went to New York from San Diego, who at the time the Chargers were a dumpster fire, who had Ryan Leaf and were known as like the quarterback graveyard for the last half of the 90s and the early 2000s. Like, that was the problem. They had Drew Brees that couldn't make him work out. That's why he didn't want to go to the Chargers. AJ, he's 41 and mercurial, referring to Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, it's bad. Jacob C. We can keep him next year and see what happens and try to build a better quarterback class in the following year. Any quarterback we draft this year will fail. So you're going to just eat another season? Because they're not going to make the playoffs next year. Even with Rodgers, they're not going to make the playoffs next year. The AFC is too competitive, and Aaron Rodgers is too old. And any coach you hire is going to have to work around Rodgers. So what are you just going to hire a coach for 2026 and then just say take it on the chin for a year and then start again? It just doesn't work that way. Roger F. Jets should trade Aaron Rodgers for Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton would have probably been better today. Manish Mehta's burner, Brian Sternbeck. For those that don't know, he switched it as part of a joke in the last stream. Apparently, YouTube puts a limit on how often you can change your name. And it led to this. Rodgers being on the team next year is all about season ticket sales, nothing else. There's no football reason for him to be doing anything other than joining NBC as an analyst. Hell, even Drew Brees did that. Drew Brees was bad at being an analyst. Rodgers, the only thing he has to play for, he has two things to play for. Paychecks, and I don't want to go out like this. That is it. His legacy is secure. You probably want more Super Bowls than the one, but you got one. You got 4 MVPs. You got 9 billion yards passing. You got 5,000 touchdowns. Nobody can say a bad word about Aaron Rodgers as a football player. This does not knock him down a peg because he was bad at age 40 after an Achilles, like looking at his legacy from a long-term perspective. The only reason he wants to play next year for the Jets or anybody else is I don't want to go out like this or I like money. And honestly, season ticket sales, I think this is just me, 30,000 feet away. I think that Rodgers has become such a toxin. I feel like if they brought him back at this point, I feel like that would hurt season ticket sales. People want to see people wanted to see prime Aaron Rodgers. People don't want to see this. People don't want to see this complete train wreck. Nobody wants to see this. Brandon, I have a prove-it attitude with this team, so I was expecting losing until proven otherwise. That's a good reminder. Roger F. I love how all the ex-Jets excel after they leave the Jets. It's classic. It's classic Jets stuff. And then, of course, Brian Sternbeck basically saying the Jets, if they draft Shedeur Sanders, wouldn't control his rights beyond the 2026 draft if they can't reach a deal with him. So, yeah, I bet that they're going to go through all those hoops to jump through and miss out on a year of earning money and developing and playing. Yeah, I just think I just don't think they'll do that. JPS Car, is there anything in the rule book to stop Elon from buying the team and using all the Tesla robot? I hope there is. There's few owners that are worse than Woody Johnson. He would be one of them, running away. That actually frightens me, that he's going to buy a team, like a sports team. Because Woody Johnson's just like a random rich old white guy. Like Elon is something different. That would actually scare me if that happened. Plus, it'd be run by if he's in the government, that'd be a government-run team. That'd be even weirder. AJ, even if I wasn't a Jets fan, watching what's happening to Aaron Rodgers is just depressing. It's not depressing because his personal view, whatever you think of him, I'm not on board with a lot of them. His personal views have made him kind of a easy target, and understandably. they come back to bite him in the ass a lot. So I could get reveling in, him struggling to end his career. People did that with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Like everybody, that's what happens when you're that good. I get that, but purely from like an aesthetic football perspective, yeah, it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch, and I know Packers fans are jumping for joy after they fleeced the Jets again. I know all that, but if Packers fans grew up watching Rodgers and leaning on Rodgers, they won a Super Bowl with him and all that, like there has to be a part of them, I feel like deep down, that's like, oh no. Oh, this is sad. It's like when a wrestler goes on for too long and they're in their fit. Ric Flair's still wrestling now. He's in his 70s. And he can't do the moves. You're like, oh, no, you don't have to do this. There's that band you like. I don't know if you're like any other classic rock guys in here, but there's that band that had a couple hits in the 70s and 80s. You're like, all right, I like these guys. And then you see them playing like county fairs or doing Christmas albums, and you're like, oh no. Oh, this is a mess. That's where we're at with Aaron Rodgers now. And it's sad that he, of all people, a guy that good, has to end up there. DK, I enjoy watching Jet Press more than Jets games. Thank you. Thank you, DK. That is some high praise. And I will say, though, to qualify it, it's a low bar to clear. Because it is not hard to do something more enjoyable than watching a New York Jets game. Kevin Dinky. Don't say tank because they couldn't win if they tried. Horrible organization as long as Woody calls the shots. Bezos better blow him away with an offer with this team or we will never see a Super Bowl again. I get the idea of just not Woody is an attractive owner option, but you got to give me a break with Bezos because there are good and bad owners. Cleveland got Art Modell sold their team to the Haslams. They're worse off. David Tepper bought the Panthers. They're worse off. You can get bought by worse people. How do you think Woody Johnson bought the Jets from Leon Hess? You can get bought by a lot worse people. Jacob C., what I'm saying is maybe pass on drafting a quarterback this year. I get what you're saying. I just wouldn't. If that's the case, I also wouldn't bring Rodgers back. If you want to say this team isn't good enough to surround a young quarterback with what they need, then there's two options that you can go. You could either just draft him and then stash him for a year and just let Tyrod or Jameis Winston or whatever take your lumps and then move him in 2026. I could get behind that to a degree. Or get like that Tyrod Jameis guy, try to make an effort to compete, maybe get Derek Carr from the Saints if they give up, and then if it doesn't work after that, then you totally reboot. But yeah, I can't justify bringing Rodgers back irrespective of if you take a quarterback or not. Because if you bring him back, and you're trying to win, why would you use the top 10 pick on his replacement? Like, it's the whole Jordan Love thing. And if you don't bring him back and you don't sign an upgrade, then why don't you draft a quarterback? Sanders will be gone before us. Who else excites you? Really, the only one I could see right now in this draft is Quinn Ewers has been a little bit disappointing. I don't think he's going to go in the first round. I don't think Jackson Dart's going to go in the first round. I think Drew Aller from Penn State he's probably going to go back and then be like the number one pick in 2026. Him and Arch Manning are going to compete. Really, the only one I could see that has like Pro Bowl high-end potential would be Milroe. And that's all because of traits. I think Carson Beck is better right now. I think Quinn Ewers is better right now. It's just you're going to have to roll the dice with Milroe's traits. And the last time the Jets rolled the dice on a traits guy was Zach Wilson. And look where that got you. Jeff, Jets can pay Sam Darnold. Whoever pays Sam Darnold is going to be in for the regret of their life. That's my prediction. Because he's got an amazing offensive line, an amazing coach offensively, probably the best skill position group in the league with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Harrison, TJ Hockenson, Aaron Jones. That's easy mode for a quarterback. If you pay him like $120 million over 3 years, it's going to be looking very Daniel Jonesy. Justin, Mike, first time, long time. Let's talk about Kenny Nwangwu. Do you think he could be a Hall of Famer? I see shades of Barry Sanders and Walter Payton. 1 game, 1 kickoff return touchdown. If anything, he's on the Devin Hester track or the Cordero Patterson track. Or what was the dude on the Browns who was the returner? Not Eric Metcalf. Josh Cribbs. He's on the Josh Cribbs track. So if the Jets have anything to celebrate right now, if Kenny Nwangwu, and that's about it because they don't have a quarterback. They don't have a coach. They don't have a GM worth a damn. It's tough. Aaron Rodgers with another bad quote on why his numbers are down. There are 11 guys on the field. Sometimes it's my fault. That's a sad statement. Manish Mehta. This is burner. I'm fine with the Jets running out of quarterback room with Mac Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and Jordan Travis. Don't care about trying to compete quickly. I get that. I get that you don't have to necessarily go for broke next year. And I get that next year, no matter what's probably going to be the 15th year in a row they missed the playoffs and their 10th straight losing season. But also, I'm looking at the league. I'm looking at Washington. I'm looking at Denver. I'm looking at Houston last year. It should not take that long to turn things around. Like, they have enough guys right now to where they should not be three. Even if they had Zach Wilson as their quarterback, I would say this team should not be 3-9, just based on the talent on the roster. So I think it's a disservice to them if you just completely bottom out. Man, it's bad. It's one of those times, man. Jets fan can be tough. It's been very rarely where I could say it's been as dark as it has been right now, because nobody knows what to do. We don't even know who the owner is. We don't even know who owns the team. Everybody's saying Woody's going to go overseas. That's not confirmed yet. So we still don't know. JPS Kari, if the playoffs route reaches 20 years, are we all considered free agents and allowed to root for other teams? Go root for another team now. If it helps your mental health, go do it now. Don't give this team your money. Don't let them impact your mental health. Stuff's important. If they're hurting you, leave now. My brother's a Lions fan. He got out quick, and he's smart. So with that, I'm going to go sign off. Thank you guys for tuning into the Jeff Press Podcast. I've been Mike Luciano, filling in for Justin Freed, who was at that atrocity of a football game with the Jeff Press Podcast. So you can go find us on YouTube. That's where you can like the stream. You can subscribe and join our 99-cent membership. And you can find us on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. Until then, I'm Mike Luciano. Justin Freed will be back on Wednesday. We will see you guys then.